Dave Kealoha, the Flying Hawaiian, tries to sell his 1975 RSR Backdate Outlaw awesome car for a second time, not on BAT, but on PCAR Market. Does that mean he's going to be eating spam for the rest of the year? Let's find out.
Nerd! Get those nerds!
Haley, we got a special show today. How
Aloha.
are you guys? Hey,
Aloha.
Oh, I should have some Hawaiian music in here. That's a good idea, Michael Deeb. Just making more work for me in the post. I see how you are. Hey, guys, welcome to the Bid Nerds, your daily nerd out on the most interesting car of the day from all the automotive enthusiast auction sites. We definitely have an interesting one here today and an interesting story to tell. If you are new to the channel, thanks for checking us out. What we do is we find the most interesting car from all these auction sites, and we have a conversation about that car with you. We tell you all the details. We tell you all of our observations, the things that we think are interesting about that particular car. And then we get to the really interesting stuff. We make a prediction as to what we think the results of that car's auction will be. And we are always wrong. We don't know what we're doing. Don't listen to us. But hey, look, check out the comments below. If you're part of the nerd herd, if you're not part of the nerd herd, you need to discover the nerd herd. That is a wealth of knowledge. Folks follow this show and they make their predictions and they throw in all kinds of really cool things that they know and insights on these cars that we talk about. So you can really learn something, not by listening to us, but reading the comments below. So we do encourage you to play along, put your bid in when we make our bids, and then go to the future with us, which we will do at the end of the show. So make sure you stick around, because at the end, we tell you what actually happened. We reconcile our incorrect predictions with what actually happened. So Lots of fun. All right. Look, my name is John Polnik. We shoot the show in Las Vegas along with my partner, Michael Deeb, who is in San Francisco. Let's do it, man. Let's get to the most interesting car of the day. Michael Deeb, the Flying Hawaiian, came out to Las Vegas a couple of weeks ago, and we went and visited our friends at Godden Classic, and then we went out and made a film. And tell us about this car.
Rami, Rami made a video about this car. You made a video for Rami about this car.
That is correct, yeah.
All right, so correct me if I'm wrong. Actually, I have a question for you.
All
is
right.
the Flying Hawaiian Eddie the owner, or is the Flying Hawaiian the actual name of the car?
Flying Hawaiian is Dave Kealoha.
Dave, not Eddie. Dave.
Dave Kealoha is the owner and builder of this car.
Yeah. And so the car is the Flying Hawaiian.
Yeah, you know what? Dave Kealoha is the Flying Hawaiian, and the cars that he makes are Flying Hawaiian cars. Basically, the Flying Hawaiian is his brand. So this is the Flying Hawaiian RSR.
This is where the 900 miles between us becomes so big, because I wish I was out there to
you could have just watched the video here. Let's watch a little bit of the video real quick. Wait a minute. I don't know if it's playing. Is it playing here?
It's not.
It's not playing.
Yep.
Stand by, guys. We're
Hit
gonna
play
go
again.
Yeah.
Wow, this car. I can't. You're basically getting a Singer for a quarter of the price. Hey guys, today my good friend Dave Kealoha, aka the Flying Hawaiian, is going to teach me how to surf Porsche style. Dave started this project from a humble 1975 Porsche 911 Coupe way back in 2017, and what has taken him years to complete can only be described now as a masterpiece. I gotta tell you something, this car...
All right, so you guys can go watch that episode of the Rami Show on YouTube. That's one of our sister channels. We do profiles on all kinds of cool cars. So Dave brought the car out, and we made a really cool film for him. Watch the whole film. But all right, Michael Deeb, why don't you tell us a little bit more about the car?
So Dave's car started life as a 1975 Porsche 911S Coupe. and as I understand it, did all the work himself to create a beautiful 3.8 liter 964 based motor, punched out to 3.8 liter Backdate RSR. And this car is stunning. The color is called Kingston Gray. And JP, I'm going to say that's not a Porsche color, right? That's just a color he found somewhere and put it on this car.
No, that's a you question,
I don't,
not a me question.
Yeah,
looks like a Singer color to me.
Yeah, I've never heard of Kingston Gray, but I love
blue.
the color. Yeah, and it's really interesting too. The car is on PCAR Market, and it closes in a few days from now. But it is worth noting that this car ran on Bring a Trailer in January of this year and failed to meet reserve, which is interesting. And the colors that the way that the Kingston Gray looks in the photos on the BAT listing, the car looks very light gray. But these photos that were taken in Vegas, it looks like out at Red Rock, John, correct me if I'm wrong, looks like it was done at the golden hour, and the car does have almost a Gulf blue look to it, and I really like it. Certainly in the golden hour in the evening, without the direct sunlight on it, the color really comes into its own, and it is beautiful. There's so much to see. There's a lot done here. Let me just read a few things that I put down in my notes that I thought were worth mentioning. So RSR Backdate, long hood, turbo fender flares, Kingston Gray, 964 motor. This car has Resant ITBs. The 915 gearbox was rebuilt, and it runs through a wave track limited slip differential. It's also interesting that the car does not have heater boxes, and it doesn't have AC. And so, again, kind of jumping ahead, while the build is incredible and it took Dave years, what we're looking at is probably close to a 400 horsepower, 2,500 pound car. As it's a 1975 911S, all the suspension was modified to replicate a 1986 930 turbo, and then sort of modified with juicier bits from there. So this car is going to handle really, really well. It's got an incredible motor, and it's got certainly a transmission that I would love to run. Like the 915 box, when they're rebuilt and you've got a limited slip differential, that is a fantastic combination, especially for a car like this. I mean, it's basically going to behave like a race car, but Dave went through all the stuff, the bump steer kit and everything. So like the steering wheel's not going to move. The car's going to handle and feel planted. It's going to feel infinitely more modern than the 75 911S shell that it was built on. And so it looks like the incredible attention to detail. This car ran in January, JP, and in the comments when it was on BAT, Dave kind of got trolled a little bit. There was one guy who got debunked by other people and by Dave himself, but he went out and said, this is ridiculous. Like, what do we think this car is going to go for? You could build this car for $150,000 to $200,000. Now, you can build a Backdate for $150,000 to $200,000. Sure, you can build anything you want for that money. But this car is closer to a Singer in the quality and the attention to detail than it is to a $150,000 or even a $200,000 Backdate. But it didn't stop from the comments being made, and I don't know if that hurt what the final value was when it failed to meet reserve back in January. There was another person, a separate person, who said, no heat, no AC, no sale. And again, it's hard to quantify that, to say that that's the reason why it didn't meet reserve. But those things are true, and the car also didn't meet reserve. So you have to take all these things into account, at least to some degree. Now, there's an interesting thing that happened. This car was bid up to $257,000 and still failed to meet reserve, which tells me that Dave is looking for at least $300,000 to $350,000 for his car. And I'm not saying that's out of line. I'm just saying that might reflect what he's got in it, at the very least. But it's also worth noting, and I think this needs to be said, this car had 58 bids. So 58 bids took it to $260,000, and yet it still failed to meet reserve. Now the car is on PCAR Market, and I would say that's the lesser platform. I would also say that interest rates have gone up and the market has softened further, than it was in the winter of earlier this year when this car failed to meet reserve on BAT, what I would say the better platform for this car. But BAT is, or PCAR Market is a weird place. And I'm going to say this up front, JP. This car technically, because of its history, its own comp from January of this year, failing to sell at $250,000, I still wouldn't be surprised if this car brought more money on PCAR Market this week. But I still, like, let's say it goes up to 285 grand or something like that. I still think it's going to fail to sell on PCAR Market. I don't think it's going to sell or find a buyer on PCAR Market, but I wouldn't be surprised if it found more money, but still also failed to sell. So I feel like we're maybe getting way ahead of ourselves. But you know the man, you and Rami, I presume, have driven the car. JP, when you lay awake at night and you fantasize, God, if I had all the money in the world and I could build my own car, the car that I come up with, and I would say most of our viewers would come up with, has got to be pretty damn close to this car. I don't think Rami's take that it's a Singer for a quarter of the money is unfair take at all. It looks like every stone has been unturned. This car was done by hand, and it was done over a painstaking number of years, but put together with only the best materials to create what I consider to be probably arguably one of the single greatest air-cooled driving experiences you could have, short of a 993 GT2. So, JP, I'll hand it over to you, telling you I'm impressed. I love everything about it. I think the video you guys with Rami made is fantastic. But there's got to be a much bigger story about the head scratcher that is that this car is currently listed on PCAR Market instead of being at a live auction in Monterey just next month, where I think this car could have done a lot better. And I know that this is going to toe the line with a conversation that you and I had, I think, with Rami not that long ago, that there's like an invisible $300,000 watermark for built cars, that if it doesn't have a name on it, you're going to struggle to find retail money or over the $300,000 money without like Singer, or who's that brand that makes the 964s that he wanted to buy? What's that company, the Carbon 964?
Oh, the
Singers.
They make 993s, the Gunther Works
or something like that. Rod Emery, the conversation for his work, starts at $400,000, and you still have to provide the $100,000 donor car. So that's a $500,000 conversation to start with Rod Emery. Does the Flying Hawaiian, does he make enough cars that he has a brand recognition in the secondary market? Prior to you guys talking about this car, I had never heard of him. So I would say no, because if I haven't heard of him, then nobody's heard of him, like that kind of thing. So I sent it to you, JP, have that conversation with us. Tell us more about this car, how exquisite it is, what a nice guy Dave is, and how good it is. And then we'll dive into whether or not we think this car is going to succeed on PCAR Market.
Well, boy, there's a lot to unpack here, and you're absolutely right about a lot of things here. And I just want to, when you were describing the car and saying what it would be like, I can tell you firsthand, having driven it on that amazing road, the Red Rock Loop, one of the best places you can possibly get a chance to drive an air-cooled car. It was magnificent. It was just such an amazing driving experience. Before I get to more about the car, I will mention, if you want to know more about Dave, we, on one of our other sister channels, we also have the Die Porsche podcast. We had him on that show before we made the film, and we talked to him at length about the car and about his kind of philosophy of building cars and stuff like that. And we had a big part of our conversation was this notion of, is it a quarter price Singer? What do you get if you pay that $1 million for a Singer and you pay $350,000 for your car, what are you getting in a Singer that you don't get in yours? What's the difference really? And I feel like this car is not a Singer. Now, I've never driven a Singer. And he'll be the first to admit, no, it's not a Singer. It is inspired by. I mean, you look at the colorway, and with that orange interior and stuff like that. That's so Singer-esque. Everything is definitely inspired by what those guys have made. But this car isn't even built on a 964, which most Singers were or are, right? So that right there from the engine, and so with a Singer, you've got a G50 that's built. With this thing, you've got the 915 that's built, and it shifts wonderfully with that Wevo and everything like that. But he'll be the first to admit that it's not a Singer. But I couldn't get him to articulate really the value proposition here that I think is what we're trying to get to the bottom of. You spend $1 million on a Singer, you get a Singer. You spend $350,000 on a flying Hawaiian car. Are you getting a third of a Singer? I think you're getting more than a third of a Singer. Are you getting 3/4 of a Singer? No. I think you're getting something that's under half of a Singer. It's somewhere between a third and half of the value of experience and feel and provenance and all that kind of stuff when you get something like this. His name is... you go to Luftkult and everyone, him walking around, he's like a celebrity, right? But he's not outside of the Luftkult world. Nobody really knows him, right? Not like people do know what Singer is. The three pedal posse guys, the R group guys, the really hardcore Porsche nerds know who the Flying Hawaiian is. But you step outside of that nerd circle, and he doesn't quite have the name recognition that I think he's going to need to really bring the big money.
Yeah, I think you introduced me to him at Luft just a few months ago, and he was hanging out with all the art group guys from the Bay Area.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of his jam, right? And so his attention to detail. Look, he's a master builder. And he'll tell you that, a Singer has, 1,000 hours or whatever. And so does he in his car, but he's one guy, which is why it takes so darn long. The problem that I think you have, or one of the problems you have when you have one guy doing everything, is that how much of an expert can he be in all practices? Whereas Singer has a fleet of people, Rod Emery has a fleet of people. These guys have the Kelly Moss has a fleet of people who are experts in their one singular practice. So Singer has all these guys that are the best at engines and what have you, whereas he has to do every single thing. And how great can he really be at all those things? I don't know. I can tell you again, having driven the car, it's magnificent. Not having heat and air conditioning are one of those are significant things that you don't get in a Singer. You do, right? I mean, is that worth another $300,000 or $700,000? I don't know. What is that purity that you're trying to get out of something like this? Do you know the Madster cars, that guy out of Europe? Those cars, I think, are, they're built on, well, hey, you know what? I think I pulled one up on PCAR Market as a case study. Here is a car that the Madster guys... they're, I think, the closest thing to a Singer. Anytime anyone says, hey, here's a car that's just like a Singer, these guys are like the closest there is. They're out of, I think, the UK or whatever. But look at this car, right? It actually is built on...
It's a good looking, gorgeous.
It looks like a Singer, right? It's got the flares aren't RSR. They're not like the full flares. There's 3/4 flares that Singer does. They're the 17-inch Fuchs. It's got the wing. It's built on a 964, and it's got a 4-liter engine, or no, a 3.8 and right. It's got all this stuff. I mean, look at that engine build. This car really is something special. Now, this car with all its provenance and all, I mean. Here we go. We can just keep ripping through these photos. This is pretty damn Singer, right?
Yeah.
So this car was bid up to $295,000 on PCAR Market. And that's where we're really coming. That's where we're just like, is in the deal tank, they want $495,000. So they want $500,000 for this car.
God.
I think this is more than half of a Singer. And you know what I mean? So for $500,000, I think you are getting pretty darn close to a Singer experience for literally half the money, but it really is kind of on par. I don't know if the Flying Hawaiian's car. If that car didn't make 300, how the hell is Dave's car going to make 300? Is the big question.
Right.
I think that it is a better time to sell. It's the summer. We're coming into that season. I think you are 100% correct that this car should have gone to a Mecum or a live auction or a Broad Arrow or something like that at Monterey, because people know him there. The Monterey scene knows him. He has won awards at shows at Car Week, at Pebble, at Works Reunion, and all that kind of stuff. So going to PCAR Market and I mean, if I wanted this car, I'd be like, I don't know if I don't want to deal with PCAR Market people. I don't even want to. I just don't want to. I don't want to have my arm brush against those losers and scumbags over there.
Did he tell you why he chose to go to PCAR Market with it after it failed to sell, like half a year later?
He said that a friend of his did really well on PCAR Market with a car that he sold, and I don't recall which specific car, but that was like 2 years ago when things were crazy. So I think this calculation that Dave is making, I want nothing more to be than wrong in this particular scenario. But had he asked me before he made the decision to go ahead and sell the car on PCAR Market, I would have tried to say, good God, don't do it. Because the problem here now is that, all right, it didn't make it on BAT. It doesn't make it on PCAR Market. Is the car burned?
Right.
And so, could he then, if it doesn't get what he wants, could he go to one of the auctions in Monterey in a month or so and try to eke something out? People are going to be, look, there's two comps.
Yeah.
So this is a big gamble on his part.
Yeah, it's really tough. So again, it's that fine line about how well he's known. Like you said, the people know him in Monterey and he's sold a car there and won awards. But I'm just saying, without the brand name behind him, I don't know if a Broad Arrow or an RM Sotheby's or a Gooding would take his car. Just because it's really nice doesn't mean that they are confident they're going to find a buyer for it for the money he's looking for. Again, if he's setting a reserve, like, I'll give you my car, but I need to make, let's just say, $350,000 out of it. They're just, in most cases, they're going to be like, well, good luck. And then they'll just turn him away. Yeah. So, he's really stuck between a rock and a hard place. This guy we know in Vegas, John, is trying to build a car, not to this level, but he's trying to put all these incredible components into a Backdate 911 RSR build. And because the market has gone up, he's talking about he wants crazy money for that car. And I'm like, nobody knows you. Like, I don't think that's not going to happen. Like, you got to come back down to earth with your expectations. Like, again, if he sells it for like half of what he thinks he's going to get for it, he'll still make money based on what he's invested in it. But you're not going to get.
Will he though? Money. And then you start. I mean, look, that's assuming you make no money for your time, right? That's where these equations get really messed up.
Well,
that okay? Whatever it costs you to, the actual materials and all that kind of stuff. But how many out of your own hours? At some point, I think he's in the position where basically whatever he sells this thing for is going to mean his labor is free. He built this car for someone for free. He just went out and did a hobby, and someone else is going to get the benefit of that.
And you're probably right. And I'd like to be there on the receiving end of that, because again, you can't duplicate it if it's on my money. If I had commissioned him to do it, it would cost me a lot more money.
Whoever the idiot on the previous auction said you could build this for $150. That's why I laughed so hard. Yeah. You are out of your mind if you think you could build this car for $150. Ish is so expensive these days. And to get this quality of stuff, whatever, and then finding people to do it, you're going to wait years, and it's going to cost you way, 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 way more. The only way to get a car like this for at a value is to buy it like this from someone who, unfortunately,
John, if you go to Home Depot or Grand Auto or whatever, nuts and bolts are twice as expensive as they were 4 years ago. I mean, it's just it's mind-boggling. So, stunning car.
Yeah. What do we think? Well, let's get to the number, because we're going long in this opening. Yeah, so
I know. I'm just so nervous for your friend John, because it feels like it's dead man walking, and I do think the car is going to be burnt twice in the same calendar year if it doesn't sell. So, what we're looking at is a 1975 911S Coupe. 3.8 liter RSR Backdate built by, tell me his name again.
Dave Kealoha,
Dave.
Hawaiian.
Dave. I keep wanting to call him Eddie because I knew a Hawaiian named Eddie. So anyways, John, our car is sitting at $151,964 with about 4 days until it closes. I just think that it's a special car. PCAR is a different market. I think the number I kind of spilled earlier at 285. I think it gets bid up to $285,000, but I don't think Dave is letting it go for that number. So I'm going to say 285 with an asterisk, fail to sell, and then it's going to wind up in the deal tank for like $399,000 or something like that. What Dave really wants for the car, which is probably close to $400,000. And again, probably the finished product is worth that. I don't know where, and I'm in the business, I don't know where he goes to get it. If his name and his reputation is that good, how come one of his customers or one of a friend or a colleague of one of his customers isn't knocking on his door to negotiate a deal on this particular car? That to me is the mystery. If he's so well known, even in a small circle, how come somebody isn't waiting to receive this car when it was built? So I think he might be left holding the bag here, and that is kind of a bummer.
It's hard not to agree with that take. Your number was what, 285?
285. I think it's going to do, that's like what, another $25,000 over what it failed to bring on BAT. But it might not do that, but I'm just going to say from a positive thing. But anything under 300 or 350 is probably not going to bring this car home based on all the time, energy, and the finished product. I think it justifies that it's close to that. But it's that weird area that we're talking about, John. He's stuck in between two worlds of not having the brand recognition and being well over any of the other $150,000 RSR Backdate builds that are out there. This isn't that car, but it doesn't have a name attached to it to get the retail money that it needs. So I send it to you at 285 with definitely a FTS, and it shows that makes an appearance in the deal tank. What do you think is going to happen, John?
Man, I am right there with you. That you kind of stole my number. I kind of know what he needs to get for it, and I wonder if he has a come to Jesus moment and just says, "All right, I'm out," and just recoups and cuts his loss. I doubt he will, though. I mean, I think that the number I'm gonna go under. I'm gonna say 280. I just think PCAR Market can't get it done. I do think that they'll maybe get a little bit more money for it, and they'll pat themselves on the back. They'll get the bids a little higher than the 257 just because more people are paying attention now. I'd like to think that the Rami Show film will contribute to that. I'll take all the credit for it if it winds up getting over 300. I'll just say that's because the Rami Show did an episode about it. But I'm going to be a little bearish. I'm going to be under here. I am kind of surprised that someone in the community hasn't stepped up between the time that it didn't sell on BAT and now that it's going on PCAR Market. Because
or even when he was building it, how come there weren't three people sitting there waiting for it to be built? It's got to be one of the best cars he's ever done, right? I mean, is he making cars like this regularly?
I mean, he's made a couple, but I don't see another one in him. I think after this car, this might be the last one too. That's another thing. If he
doesn't make money on it, he'll only, the next one he builds will be for himself.
He wants to make. Well, he's been talking about making trucks. He's like really into making these classic Ford trucks. 70s doing stuff like this to Ford trucks because it's a lot less expensive. So I don't know. Yeah. Well, okay, so this has been a long episode. I don't imagine the back end will be any shorter, but thanks for sticking around this long, guys. But don't leave just yet. We're going to fire up the flux capacitor, go in the future, and find out what happened with Dave Kealoha's Kai RSR right after this. Hey guys, I gotta tell you about our friends Godden Porsche of Las Vegas and Godden Classic. If you're looking for a new Porsche or a classic, you gotta call our friend Steve at Godden. Save yourself the hassle of screwing around with all the auctions like we always talk about and just talk to Steve. He'll find you the classic Porsche you're looking for. Godden Porsche of Las Vegas. Welcome to the future. Thanks for sticking around for the second half, the back half. Bid Nerd, your daily nerd out on the most interesting car of the day from all the automotive enthusiast auction sites. You can definitely see our enthusiasm, I think, for this particular car. This is a special one for us because we are friends with the owner, Dave Kealoha, and the Flying Hawaiian and his... what is it? The RSR Backdate, the 3.8 liter coupe. This is something pretty incredible. And this auction was, man, chock full of drama. This one came down to the wire. Michael Deeb, why don't you tell us what happened?
Dave Kealoha, the Flying Hawaiian, built this 1975 Porsche 911S with a 3.8 liter 964 built motor as an RSR Backdate. The car is stunning. He worked on it for years, tried to sell it earlier in the year on BAT, where it failed to meet its mark. And so now the car has come back to market. So in January, it hit $257,000. My bid was $285,000 this time around on BAT. And like I said, stranger things have happened. JP, you came in with a pretty hefty bid of your own. You went $280,000. Dave's car actually sold. In other words, it brought $20,000 more than it did on BAT. It sold for $277,500 on 39 bids on PCAR Market. So the question is, because when it failed to meet reserve at roughly $260,000, in my mind, I'm thinking Dave wanted about $300,000 for the car. So I don't know him personally, but you have talked to him, on a more intimate level because you know him and you guys produced the beautiful video and all that sort of thing. The question I have, and I imagine a lot of the people who have seen it, have watched this episode and know that the car failed earlier in the year, is he happy with that result?
Well, I mean, I can tell you that he's relieved because the car, it has moved on, right?
Yeah.
You go into a project like this that's years and years and years. He is putting a lot of blood, sweat, and tears into this particular car. And I'm going to say there's no way in hell that this number reflects just the labor that went into this thing, right? And, I don't know firsthand for sure if this number covers his costs, but I can tell you that he lowered the reserve at the last minute to make the sale happen.
Wow.
So, I think our inclination was correct that he wanted more and expected more. But let's kind of look. Here's the thing: at $277, that's like you said, $20,000 more than it was bid to in BAT. PCAR Market is going to be running around patting themselves on the back, going, "Look, we got 20 grand more, blah 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 blah." But let's be real. When he tried to sell it the first time around, I think it was the worst possible time within the last 12 months to have tried to sell this particular car. It was winter. People aren't looking for stuff like this quite as much.
Right.
And there was absolutely a dip in the market. And at that time, was he sitting there going, well, the market's going down. I better unload this thing as quickly as possible. So he was thinking that hockey puck may just kind of be sliding flatline or maybe find a hole somewhere. So he's going, okay, let's get it gone. What's happened in the last 6 months is we've seen a rip in the stock market. I said this on one of the other episodes recently. A lot of capital allocators were looking about a year ago to start unloading assets. And so everything kind of dipped down. And 6 months ago was kind of the bottom. Or at least that hockey puck was on the ground before it was bouncing back up. And I think right now we could be looking at a blip up. Right now we're 6 months after that, and the market's getting better. And I say getting better, but it's such a relative term, right? It's been so screwed up for a while that I think a lot of people were kind of like looking for places to hedge their bets because inflation was so out of control. Interest rates are staying high. And so I think people are at least thinking that inflation isn't going to be as bad as it's been. in my opinion, that may be a mistake to make that decision. But that said, I think that that's why there's a rip in the stock market. So I think that's going to the same thing can happen in the car market. So getting $20,000 now on a platform that we can all agree is not as good as BAT and has a lot of faults, I think is just basically, if this were on BAT again, it would have brought more money. It probably would have brought $30,000 or $40,000 more on BAT, but BAT would not let you do it again. Right? You can't try to sell your car again with just a few months later, right? Actually, I don't know that for sure. I don't know
I'm not sure what their policy is. I look, if he would have held on to it through the winter and tried to sell it again next January, I think they would have let him put it on. But prior to that, I don't know what their policy is. That's a really good question. And would have been interesting to ask. I wonder if he had asked himself or if he just didn't want to go back to the exact same audience. But yeah, it is it's a different time in the year.
Is there a different audience on BAT than there is on PCAR? I think the only answer to that is that the audience is smaller on PCAR. If you know about PCAR and you're looking at PCAR, you're also looking at BAT.
That's fair.
It's not inverse at all. There's no one that's exclusively looking at PCAR and not BAT. Right. Yeah. There are people that cruise BAT that don't even know PCAR Market exists. Right. I talked to one of our friends in our circle that hangs out with us all the time, and he was like, "Isn't PCAR Market part of Porsche?" It's like, no, they're used car salesmen. Not at all. They're completely Marked is Marked even still around? Are they still up? I don't even know.
They are.
They're the Porsche one. But that said, it's I just think that Dave, bottom line, he's relieved. He's happy to kind of recoup his capital. This is a clear case of cut your losses and move on, because he can struggle and grasp, and maybe he brings this car to one of the auctions in Monterey, next month. And maybe it brings more money, but they want 10%, buyer premiums and premiums that get charged to the seller too. And I mean, so even if it brought a bunch more money, would he really be netting anything more than this result? I think it makes sense for him. Now he has the money in his pocket. Now he can go to Monterey and maybe find a deal on something on his next project or whatever, but he is now, call it flush, and he can kind of start the next thing and hopefully be more efficient on the next project and make, actually make money. I feel bad for a guy like Dave, who is so skilled, has put so much work into something like this. He should be rewarded for this car, but let's face it, this is why it's so tough for small organizations to make money on hot rods. There's no way to do this unless you can build some kind of economy of scale, like Singer has and like Emery has. And even Singer, you got to wonder how much money they're actually making.
I want to look at this from just a slightly different angle for a half a second before we sign off on this. If this car were a different color, a brighter, more popular color, would it have done better?
Yes. I think this color hurt the car. Absolutely. I don't dislike this color at all. I think the car is beautiful.
I do too.
But I think I have heard comments here and there that color. I mean, look, if you're a one-off guy, pick a color that has a broader appeal. You're going with this. This color is definitely polarizing.
Yeah.
I mean, it's also, I don't know. I mean, here's the thing. You look at this car and it does scream, it's a Singer-esque color, right? Isn't this the color that they had their Targa? The one Targa that they did? I think it was kind of like a blue on orange or whatever.
Maybe.
But I don't know. Yeah, it's definitely not a color that would have been high on my list. That's for sure. What color do you think would have been better?
Oh, I don't know. I just, Porsche has such a bright rainbow of popular colors right now. Your Mexico and Riviera blue, the Viper green and Signal orange. Like those are colors, Speed yellow. They would have popped. They would have jumped off the page last January in the middle of winter. They would have jumped on this. This color, as I'm looking at it, just kind of dawned on me. It's a little drab. I think it's beautiful. I like the color. But I don't know that it's not a popular shade. It is polarizing, especially at that price point. And you're not, even at 300 grand, you're not repainting this car. That's not happening.
No way. I mean, no way.
Yeah.
This thing is total,
Yeah.
bolt off. Well, let me ask you this question then, since we're on this color tip. What about a more subtle color? What about a black one or a silver one? Would those colors have done better because they have such broad appeal? This car would have looked dope in black, but I'm biased. I like black cars.
Yeah, yeah, and you said it. You said it in your description. The broader the appeal, the wider net you're casting, and so I do think that is part of it. Again, as I look at this car as a one-off build, the first thing that I think, and this is the thing this is why it's an unfair comparison to a Singer, is every single Singer is bespoke. The colors that you see on those Singers were picked by the clients 9 times out of 10. I'm sure there's a client that goes in there and says, build me whatever you want because they can afford that. And they like that. That's cool. It's kind of a surprise. But this car looks like my knee-jerk reaction to this car would have been that was built for somebody. Well, ultimately it was built for the builder, and then he's trying to sell it. And I agree with you, JP. I think that this car, if your ultimate intention was to build it to sell it, it should have been built in the colorway of a broader appeal, and even a black or silver would have been broader appeal than Kingston Silver, a color I've never even heard of.
Isn't it Kingston Gray?
Kingston Gray. See, I'm never heard of it. I couldn't even say it.
Gray is just not a color that you want to go
drab.
with.
Yeah.
Here, but I don't know. Whatever. I think we're getting into the weeds here. Bottom line, though, you do have to congratulate Dave. 270,000 plus for a one-off custom build by someone that really doesn't have a name. I mean, we've said it over and over and over again. It's really hard to get more than a couple of $100,000 for a one-off build cars, unless you have a big name, and this car just doesn't have any of that. And he somehow got nearly $300,000 for a car he built. Did he make money on that? I don't know. Even if he did, it's not nearly enough to cover the amount of labor that he's got into this thing. But that said, it's pretty triumphant for a guy to take a car and get it to this level. So congrats to Dave Key. Aloha. We wish you well on your next project and look forward to seeing what you come up with next. Michael Deeb, are we signing off on this one?
We're signing off on this one. We'll see you at Cars Un Cafe in San Francisco on the 30th of July. Follow us on the Instagrams. You'll see all about it.
See you in San Francisco or Las Vegas. Bye.
Nerd! Get those nerds!